by far and away, probably the most sought after bow or design or type of bow that I get asked questions about or encouraged to do more work with, it would be a bamboo backed, in this case, Ipe reflex deflex design. Welcome back to the shop, you guys. This week I'm going to take you through my process for preparing all of the components that go into one of my bamboo reflex deflex bows. In this instance it's going to be an Ipe belly, but it could just as easily be hickory and make the same quality bow with the same dimensions. So guys, hang with me. I'm going to show you how I do it right now. I'm just going to dive in right here where we're at to bring you up to speed to where to get started. Two things. One, you need your belly piece of wood. All right, this particular piece is Ipe. Could just as easily be hickory in the exact same dimensions. Find that hickory and bamboo make a tremendous reflex deflex bow. I've actually got one back here. It makes a very attractive bow. Anyway, my piece of Ipe here, just over 1 1/4 inches wide. It is 7/16 inch thick at 70 inches long. Board. Okay, so then comes the piece of bamboo, and this is where you need to invest a lot of time and effort in getting the exact right piece of backing strip. Okay, so what I've got here, and it may be tricky to see. I'm going to turn it around right quick so you can see me measure it out from this end. I have a center node with 1, 2 nodes running off in one direction, and then 1, 2, and a third node out here on the extreme. When we measure the entire length, this is 72 inches long. All right, we are making a 68-inch bow, which means I'm going to be cutting 4 inches off of the end down here, which basically negates this very last node. At this point right here on my node is 34 inches. So if we take this piece of bamboo from the tip down here, from this tip, and we measure out 68 inches, we end up right out here on the node, which will grind down when it comes time to putting tip overlays on, and gives us 1, 2 nodes on the top, a node right in the center of the grip, and 1, 2 nodes on the bottom, or top and bottom, it doesn't matter. Each limb's going to have 2 nodes. That helps in the tillering piece of the process. Okay, but with the way we're constructing this bow, the tillering piece, at least the final tillering, is not nearly as big a mystery as I think a lot of people like to make a reflex deflex bow sound like. I'm going to insert a card right here in this portion of the video about tillering a reflex deflex bow. Now that's getting well ahead of where we're at right now, but if it's something you want to check out in the meantime, go ahead and run over and take a look at that video so you can see that it's the construction process is what makes the tillering piece so much easier. All right, so this is our start. We're going to lay out a very basic American flat bow design, which is going to have 8 inches of center. That's going to encompass 4 inches of handle space, 2-inch fades, and then we're going to continue on for about 4 inches and then taper on out to 1/2-inch tips. We do 1/2-inch tips so that we have space to work with, you know, as far as helping any kind of twist or misalignment when it comes time to stringing this bow up and centering, or not centering, but narrowing those tips then in the finished product. Got our layout cut out of our Ipe board here. I'm going to throw another card into the video at this point so that you guys can see how to lay out your shape on a piece of lumber, because this, just like many other pieces, was not straight end to end. It had just a little bit of a bow to it. And you got to make sure that you do not immediately assume that you're dealing with a straight piece of wood when you're laying out a bow. Of course, the resulting potential being a crooked bow. So here we are. I have my center line marked out. I got the center node right here. And we are going to go ahead and put these two, I'm going to clamp the ipe down to the bamboo here and work to get it centered on the crown end to end, because here again, you guys, your bamboo can do some twisting and stuff, so you want to be on your crown just right on both ends. Couple quick clamps, and we're just going to dry out this shape onto the bamboo. And then you'll get this. And we're going to go now and cut that out at the bandsaw as well. Here we are. So everything is now cut out to shape. Right, you'll see that the bamboo is going to be just slightly larger in dimension than the ipe, simply because the pencil lines, you know, were outside the ipe, and then we cut, of course, outside our pencil lines, but not by much. We are lined up. You can see the markings on the center here, such that our middle node will be at the middle of the bow, at the grip, and everything is lined up. Obviously, our bamboo is way too thick, and for that matter, so is our ipe. So at this point, the easy part is done. This is where the construction of this bow starts to get a little bit more interesting. And this is where we put the tapers on the pieces. We want to reverse tiller our belly piece. Basically just tiller it. I mean, we're just going to tiller it to about 20 inches of draw. Get a good idea of how it's bending. We want it bending very well before we glue it up. And the resistance of that bend should be very light. So we're going to basically make this about a 25-pound bow, and then we're going to glue on a then tillered piece of bamboo. So we are going to cut down this bamboo and tiller it as well. Of course, the glue surfaces of both pieces have to be perfectly flat. So easy to accomplish on the board because we're already there on one surface. A little more tricky on the bamboo, and that's why you gotta be careful when you're grinding it down to maintain a flat surface on that thing. So, all right guys, I want to go through the reduction strategy here for getting our bamboo thinned down. As you can see, this particular piece is really quite thick. Probably dealing with about 3/8 of an inch, even approaching 1/2 an inch. And we want to get it down to what is more like about 1/8 of an inch here, like this. Now we could spend all day grinding this stuff down on a sander, right? But that's really not a very efficient way to go to business. So I'm going to stick with the process that I'm familiar with, and I just run it right through the bandsaw and try and cut it about in half, straight up and down. Now that takes a lot of trust, you know, and experience on your tools to be able to do that. If that's not where you're at, or if you're trying to use hand tools or something along those lines, remember you do need to get this flat. There's a million ways to do it, but it's got to be flat enough to glue to a flat board surface. On a bandsaw, or any other saw for that matter, you can take a faceted approach, right? Here's how I would approach a faceted removal process, right? So you establish basically how thick you want this thing to be from the back to your cut, and then run it off run off the corners here like this, right? And so you take a lot of waste wood off here, and you're left with this ridge in the middle. But what it does is ensure that you're always intact as far as the thickness on your edges on both sides. And that's what's most important, because when you are just running straight up and down, you never know just how close you are back here without having got all that experience behind you. But once you have taken off these corners, you can then start to nibble away at this peak, right? And you can always have an eye on where you're at in terms of your bevel. So that is a much safer way to go about bringing the thickness down to a manageable level before you turn over to grinding tools and or like a planer or something like that. Here's what that looks like when it's all said and done. And I cannot, I mean, if you're using a bandsaw, I cannot, or you cannot underestimate the value of a very sharp blade. I am always replacing my bandsaw blade to ensure that I'm not burning and screaming and whistling, you know, in the operation of that tool. Even then, you can see how choppy the surface of that piece of bamboo is. And we will have to go back and do some work in terms of grinding it on a belt sander or something. And you can see some of the uneven edges in there too from just eyeballing my way through it. But got it much closer. So it's a lot more limber now. It's still got a lot of spring to it. But we're going to start thinning this thing down. And if you have ever watched my processing a bamboo back, then you would understand why I have these two notches in here. But those notches are there specifically to string up this piece of bamboo backwards so that it is strung up like a bow while we are grinding it down on the grinder, and that aids in getting a good tiller. This is what we're looking for. What I would call like an arc of the circle type of tiller on your bamboo. And the reason that we want to ensure that our bamboo is tillered in such a way is that once you glue this bamboo onto the backing of any belly, it is going to project its shape. Bamboo is such a formidable backing material that it will project its shape through the belly of whatever you're working on. And compensating on that, the tillering on the belly to overcome what indulations or issues you have or problems you have with your bamboo back are almost futile. I mean, it's almost futile. It does not make good sense to allow that stuff to go beyond your glue up. So you want your bamboo backing tillered straight, or tillered to a nice arc of the circle. So here we are, and you'll see that it even falls flat under its own weight here. So we've done a lot to thin this down. Now it doesn't mean it doesn't still have some spring to it, and you can see it there. So this is a very lively piece of bamboo, but it is ready to be glued onto a belly. So from here, Now that we've got our bamboo tillered, now we move on to tapering our belly piece. And this is going to go through the same process. We are going to tiller this piece of ipe basically to the finished shape that we want it to be prior to gluing it up. So that will be the next. All right, guys, I do not want to underestimate what having great tools can do for you when it comes time to constructing bows. I have here a pretty large belt sander, 6 inches by, the belt length is 79. I want to say the working plenum is something like 36 inches. Very valuable tool. I get it, not everybody has it. It makes work very quick for me. If you're interested in knowing some other ways that I have worked out tapering my bows, I'll drop a another card here, you know, how I taper my bows. But I guess the important thing to understand is that you do not have to have even a 4-inch sander. So I've used a small sander in the past with only a 36-inch belt, which makes it kind of tricky as far as working surface is concerned. It's only like 18 inches. Doesn't even work an arrow, let alone an entire limb side. But nevertheless, I thought I would show you the setup that I have put in place here running. So this is full width of my belly piece right here, and tapering down to about what would be a half of what my thickness is. And this is what it has produced. So there's the thickness on that end, and it tapers, of course, to the complete thickness. So here would be what that looks like before tapering. All right, so pretty good, relatively quick. So this is the first time I've done it like this. I'm not entirely sure I'm completely sold on it. I still kind of like my drum sander, but nevertheless, it's easy to set up and relatively easy to work. You know, I just put the tip in there, and of course the belt is running against it, so it's not sucking it in. It's me pushing against the direction of the belt to get that taper on there. And I'll show it in action here. So this is a great little setup to put that taper on the limb. You know, as a side benefit, this would be a great little way to do tapered arrow shafts. If that was something you were interested in doing, you could chuck your arrow shaft in a drill and just run it right in there and taper it down. And that's really what I've drawn this setup from, is from tapered arrow shafts, and it's something that you could do to taper your bow limbs with. Guys, rasping it down, working it with a spoke shave, working it with a draw knife, any number of ways, a rasp, however you want to taper down your belly to get it into tiller, that is up to you and what you have at your disposal. This is purely a time saver for me. I have spent lots of years doing it with files and rasps, so I know the life. Okay, guys, I have run the belly piece through the sander over here and got a good taper on both limbs. I just wanted to show you the floor tiller on that. So we've got really pretty good bend. The taper on it, we'll go over the exact measurements here in just a moment, but it's got a good flex to it, good enough to glue it up, right? So that's what we're looking for. Not going to do any more tillering than just this. All we're looking for is a good even bend, and that is good enough for us to know that we can start with the assembly stage. All right, here are all of our parts laid out on the table. Just for the initial glue up portion of things. You saw me machining out the Power Lam here, and I'm going to put a card in on the video at this point that will take you to my video on Power Lams. Guys, the value and functionality of this one piece of the construction cannot be underestimated. I highly encourage that you watch the video, my explanation of what a Power Lam can do for your bow. So at any rate, we got the belly here, just working on thicknesses. I'm at about a 0.40 thickness here, and out at the tip about a 0.2. So what we're dealing with is a taper of exactly half the thickness out to the tip as from the fade, right? And that is what I ran the taper from, is from fade to tip in the setup that I had on my sander. The bamboo backing, it is running about a 0.18, 0.19-ish in between the nodes at center. So 0.18 and then tapered to get a good tiller, right? So we tillered it in reverse to make sure that we've got good bend that is not going to interfere with the taper that we assigned the belly piece. Once everything is glued, it should bend evenly right from the get-go, right? So that's the whole point here. And from here, going to steam and deflex the belly lamp. One last card going into this video here, how I steam and deflex these bow lengths. It's called the reflex. Great information there too. A very simple method for steaming and deflexing your belly lamb would work just as well if you were reflexing it. So whichever the case may be, great video to watch as far as getting that accomplished. From here, we go to the glue up. So we'll be gluing just these three pieces together to start with. The grip will be a separate piece of the equation. So this should look pretty much like this, right? A glue up, and we will have a deflex in there, and as we glue it, we will induce the reflex while it's drying, and go from the glue up to tillering. Actually, we won't tiller it right away. We'll put a riser piece in here, and then we will start the tillering process. So, guys, this is going to be the extent of this particular installment. I know I said it wasn't going to be 8 pieces, and I have put a lot of cards in the length of this video. Really, they're just for expanded knowledge if you want it. We will continue to just build along on this particular build as we go. Thanks for hanging out with me for today in the garage, and I will catch up with you next week.